Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Money Matters, because as you know, I think money matters and I think you should too. So what are we talking about this edition? We're talking about the inevitable house price crash. It's all going to end in tears. No such thing as a free lunch. What happens when you tell people you're going to get into property? Now, my youngest brother, he thinks I'm completely off my rocker because I've got millions and millions of pounds worth of mortgages. And he's not silly, he's a solicitor, he's a very senior solicitor. But do you know what he's trying to do? He's trying to pay off his mortgage and have zero debt. So what's better? A brainy solicitor with, first class degree, this, that and the other thing, who's trying to pay off everything and have no mortgage, or this nutcase that wants as many mortgages as possible? What's better? What would you rather have? Put it in the comments below. And almost without doubt, every single year, people say, oh, house prices are going to crash. They can't keep going up forever. And what are people talking about now? They're talking about, inflation. Inflation is going to cause the government put up the interest rate. Interest rate goes up, you won't be able to afford your mortgages. Really? Well, interest rates at the moment on mortgages, I just got a mortgage last week for 2.5%. And that, by the way, was fixed for 5 years. Interest rates have never, ever been so low. Have a look at some of these. But you don't need me to tell you that. What you need to do is develop independent, clear thought processes based on good education and good network. That's what you need to do. Because like anything, the fundamentals of the value of an asset are to do with supply and demand, aren't they? So I'm going to go into that shortly, but I honestly can't tell you the amount of times I've been told that Brexit is going to cause a price crash in houses. So that went on for about 5 years. And then it was, COVID, no one's going to work. No one can afford to pay their mortgage, everything's going to get repossessed, and COVID will cause a global price crash. Well, have a look at this. This is what's happened in various countries around the world as a result of COVID and lockdown. What do you think actually happened as a result of COVID and lockdown? And put to one side, all of the horrible stories and people losing that. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the financial impact of it. So what happened is people couldn't travel. They couldn't go to restaurants. They couldn't move house. They couldn't do all sorts of things. So did they spend more money or less money? Well, funnily enough, they spent less money. Do you know how much the average is on a monthly basis that UK PLC, all the people in the UK put away in a savings account? How much do you think? The average that is saved each and every month by all the people in the UK put together is £8 billion a month. What do you think happened to that during COVID? Because they couldn't go out and they couldn't spend it. It almost doubled to 15 billion. Now, if you've got this huge tidal wave of money and you can't go out and spend it on all the stuff you would normally spend it on, guess what they did? They started building extensions and doing up their houses. Why do you think the cost of wood for construction doubled in 2021? So if we start to understand economic fundamentals and get away from the media hype, because how would it be if on the front of the Daily Mail they said one day, house prices are expected to go up like they have done for the last, 50 years on average, and we expect this to be another normal year of 7% price increase. You're not going to sell many Daily Mails, are you? If the Daily Mail, on the other hand, says the property price crash is coming, they'll probably sell a few more, won't they? Because people, bad news sells newspapers. Sensationalist headlines. Just have a look at the real truth. Now, fundamentally, there are many things that humans can do without. Over the years, technology comes and goes. Most of the people watching this will remember DVDs. So if you go back through the history of, let's call it digital entertainment, because it's all Netflix now, and who on earth would go and buy DVDs these days? But if you go back before DVDs, what did you have? Well, you had VHS and Betamax, if you remember video cassettes. And even that was a major breakthrough. Oh, really? You can record the telly and watch it when you want. That was a big thing back in the day, because there only was live telly. Now, here's my point. There was a lot of money made in VHS and Betamax tapes and whatever. Do you need, as a human being living in this modern world, do you need access to your Betamax? No, it's obsolete. Is a house obsolete? I would argue no. And can a house ever be made obsolete? No. Can almost any technology be made obsolete? This is an Apple computer. My first computer was a ZX81, and I actually put it together myself. So my general point is that many, many things in this world become obsolete over time. Properties don't. If you look at basic human needs, what do humans need? Well, they need warmth, security, shelter, and food and drink. So 3 of those 5 are actually represented by your home, your house where you live. So fundamentally, is it a pretty safe bet to invest in something that provides shelter, warmth, and security? I would say yes. The second thing that my dad always used to say is, buy land, they ain't making any more of it, ha ha ha. Which, dad jokes to one side, is a pretty sound piece of investment advice. In the UK, there is a restricted amount of space and an ever-increasing number of people in it. So let's have a look at the numbers. If we look at this chart, I was actually born in 64. You can see in 1960, there was 52 million. And you can see here that the Office for National Statistics says by 2029, the population of the UK is going to be 70 million. So, in my lifetime, roughly, the population of this already crowded island has gone up by about 40%. And even in the last 20 years, the population has gone up by 8 million. So not only is the population going up, but that rate of increase is faster and faster. So in order to keep pace with that demand caused by all those people, this is the then Chancellor of the Exchequer. And he said back in 2017, we need to build 300,000 houses a year to keep up with demand. And you can see where he's getting that number from, because look at that population growth. Now here, on the other hand, is how many houses we've actually built. Back in the day, in the 1970s, we were building 400,000 houses a year, but look for the last 10 years. The average is about 150. So we need 300, we're actually building 150. So we're building 150,000 houses per year too little. And the current estimates, because of that continued shortfall, are much closer to 400,000 is what we need. And the last time we built 400,000 houses was back in the 70s. So we're building nothing like enough. So we've got population shooting up, we've got not enough property, and let's have a look at this. Cheapest mortgage rates ever available. So has there ever been a property price crash? Well, there was a property price correction. I mean, when somebody says a property price crash or whatever, what would you expect the price of property to go down by? 50%? So even in 2008, 2009, the properties I had at that time were mainly in Scotland. The price of property in Scotland actually dropped by 5%, 6%, would you call that a crash? US equities, the Nasdaq, in the first quarter of 2022 dropped by 20%. That, and even that is not called a crash, that's called a correction. So when you compare it to other asset classes, what would a crash mean to you? Because what it would mean to me is 30, 40, 50%. I've never seen that. As far as I know, it's never happened. Why? Because you've got not enough houses, massive population, and cheap money. And it's a basic, critical, essential human need. So how much do property prices go up in South Yorkshire, where I invest now, in 2021? 12 to 13%. So if you had an average house, one average house in Yorkshire, say £250,000 house, well, it just went up by £30,000 in 1 year. And that's tax-free, isn't it? Because you can release it as equity. You can take money out of the house without selling it, no tax. So, and the reason that is critical is that is roughly the average full-time salary in the UK. So each house you had in Yorkshire for roughly £250,000 last year is the equivalent to someone working full-time and giving you all their money. And that's just the capital growth without even talking about the rent. So this property price crash, every year I do predictions. And every year the predictions, of course, given what I do, include what's going to happen to property prices. And almost always I'm saying, oh, well, it's going to be a difficult year for property. After the big increase last year, it's going to be difficult to see out. Now they're talking about, as we're into 2022, they're talking about, oh, well, actually property prices might go up by another 12%. And do you know what's at the root of all that? It's this, inflation. So if I take you back to the first property I ever bought, and some of you have seen this before, 269A Roman Road. I bought it in 1982 for £9,000 and it's currently worth more than £350,000. Why? Because the value of money keeps going down. That's what inflation is. Think about it. Anyone my age, or even older, you'll remember pound notes, don't you? Do we have pound notes anymore? No. Do we have half pences anymore? When was the last time you looked at a handful of coppers and thought, oh, that's really valuable, I better not lose that? You would have done back in the 1960s, I promise you. So the cost of everything is going up, or is it? is it actually that the value of money is going down? Different subject for a different day. But I want to assure you that the safest of all the asset classes, in my view, is UK property, and specifically from what I do, UK investment property. So next time that, a television reporter or someone, a major red top newspaper, get this, their property investment specialist hasn't got any. They rent. So this journalist that's writing knowledgeably about the UK property investment market, never mind hasn't got any buy-to-lets, never mind hasn't got any service accommodation, they rent the house they live in. They've never had a mortgage in their life. Do you think would you take advice about property from someone that hasn't got any? I wouldn't. So next time someone is telling you, ooh, it's going to end in tears, a bit risky that property game, just think to yourself, how much property have they got? How many millions are they worth? And on what basis are they giving you this advice from the oracle? Because what they're probably doing is parrot repeating stuff that they read in the papers yesterday. And this nonsense about if it sounds too good to be true, probably is. Really? Well, I get told that about investment property pretty much every year, and I get more and more millions, and the people that are giving me this advice get poorer and poorer, more and more bitter, and less satisfied with their own lives. So what's my answer to, do I think there's going to be a property price crash? No. Do I think all sorts of other assets could crash in value? So be careful what you wish for. And if you want to build wealth through property, I'd love to help you on that journey. That's what Touchstone Education does. So since 2014, we've helped tens of thousands of people to become completely and utterly financially free because they've taken that step to become wealthy through property. They've ignored what their mates down the pub said. They've chosen to be different to the other people at work. And the most difficult thing of all, they've stood up to their family and they've created a new network, because most people's family, they're probably coming from a place of love and concern, and they genuinely believe it's dangerous to have millions of pounds or tens of millions of pounds worth of mortgages. And they're trying to avoid you making a costly mistake. The only way to make a costly mistake in property, in fact there's two ways. One is to not buy any property. That is the costliest mistake you can make. The second is to not know what you're doing. So get yourself educated, put yourself in a supportive community, and get yourself on the property investment ladder. So yes, of course, buy your own home, but what I mean is get investment property as well as your own home. You've been wonderful. I've been Paul. See you next time.